Once upon a time in an African village, there lived a lady named Abisola. In this village, a woman's beauty was defined by how slender her waist was. The slimmer a woman's waist, the more attractive she was considered by the men. When Abisola was a little girl, she had a normal weight just like every other girl her age. However, as she grew older, she developed an uncontrollable eating habit. There was no portion of food that Abisola could not finish. She would clear her plate in no time, no matter how much food she was served. It was not long before she became the fattest lady in the entire village. As Abisola gained more and more weight, all the men in the village stopped admiring her or even asking her out on a date. One by one, all her female friends got married, leaving only the fat Abisola still living in her father's house, growing older with each passing day. Her father, Mr. Taiwo, became very worried that her daughter would never find a husband. Abisola's younger sister had all gotten married and were living happily with their husbands. Only Abisola was left behind, still single and unmarried. This weighs heavily on Mr. Taiwo's mind as the caring father that he was. He took it upon himself to look for a suitable husband for his daughter Abisola before it was too late. One day, Mr. Taiwo heard that the son of one of his good friends, a young man named Adebayo, who had just returned to the village after living in the city for many years, was looking to take a wife. Excited at this golden opportunity, Mr. Taiwo quickly told his friend all about his daughter, Abisola. A date was fixed for Adebayo to come and meet Abisola with the intent of possibly marrying her. When Abisola heard about this potential husband visiting, she was overjoyed. Could this finally be her chance to get married like all her friends and sisters? The night before Adebayo's visit, the excited Abisola spent hours dressing and grooming herself beautifully in preparation to meet her would-be husband. The next day, Adebayo arrived at Abisola's family compound, but as soon as he set his eyes on the very fat Abisola, his face filled in disappointment. This was clearly not the beautiful woman he had imagined marrying. "I cannot marry this mountain of a woman," Adebayo said rudely, staring at Abisola's large body in disgust without another word. He turned and left the compound. Abisola was utterly heartbroken at the joy and excitement she had felt a moment ago faded away instantly. She went back to her room, locked the door, and cried uncontrollably for days. "I die single and alone. No man wants to marry me," she cried over and over again after spending days cooking up crying in her room. Abisola finally got tired of hiding away her feelings and depressed. There had to be a solution to her problem, she thought. She knew exactly where to turn. She would visit the river goddess. Abisola left the house and walked through the village until she reached the river edge. Taking a deep breath, she called out a loud voice, "Great river goddess, please hear my call and comfort. I am in dire need of your assistance." As if by magic, the river churn began to bubble and churn. Then an incredible, beautiful woman with shiny blue skin emerged from the churning water. It was the river goddess herself. "What can I do for you, young lady?" the river goddess asked. "Please, great goddess, make me slim and beautiful like other ladies my age," she pleaded, tears filling her eyes. "Again, all the men in the village have rejected me because of my body size. All my friends are married and I am here still unwanted and alone. Please help me become slim so I can find a husband to marry me. I beg of you." The river goddess regarded Abisola with a look of pity and understanding. "My dear, you are beautiful just the way you are. You must learn to love yourself despite what others may think. However, I will assist you. Before the next market day, you will find a man who will love you, cherish you, and take you as his wife. This I promise." Abisola thought about what the river goddess had said. The promise of finally finding a husband was thrilling, but this was not enough for Abisola anymore. Her face hardened with hatred and anger. First she began, "I want all the men in the village that rejected and humiliated me all these years to suffer. I want them to pay for all the pains that they put me through with their cruel words and look of disgust." The village goddess was silent for a moment. Then she simply said, "It is done. Your wish is granted." The next morning a great confusion broke out in the village. All the men awoke to find their manhoods had completely vanished overnight. No explanation could be found for why their male organs had mysteriously disappeared. Panicked, the men rushed to consult the village juju priest, a man considered to have great mystical power and knowledge of the spirit world. It was he who gave the men the shocking answer for their pledge after consulting his oracle. It is Abisola, the fat woman who has taken away all your manhood as an act of revenge for the humiliations, rejections she had suffered at your hands for so many years. The juju priest proclaimed, "The only way for your manhood to be restored is for every man to sleep with Abisola. Until then, you all will remain as you are, incomplete men." A collective groan went through the crowd of men as they realized their fate. The juju priest's words were absolute. If they wanted to be made whole again, they would have to sleep with the fattest, most undesirable woman in the village. This was a devastating blow to their egos, but the men had no choice. One by one, they lined up outside Abisola's hut, waiting for their turn to sleep with the woman that they had scorned for so long. Surprisingly, despite their initial repulsion, Abisola appeared instantly attractive to the men. The moment they stepped into her hut to lay with her, the men would literally spend hours upon hours copulating with Abisola. Their manhood would become energetic and insatiable when with her, yet totally inactive and lame when they tried to lay with their wives or any other woman in the village. They were powerless against the hold Abisola had over them. For Abisola, it was a total bliss and vindication. This was everything she had always dreamt about, to be desired by every man in the village and to be seen as the most beautiful and lusted after woman in the village, instead of a fat, undesirable one. The wives tried everything to convince their husbands back, even threatening to leave them, but the men simply could not pull themselves away from Abisola's intoxicating and bewitching spell. After many days of torment, the fed-up wives finally went to the juju priest, demanding that he must find a way to break their husbands free from Abisola's curse and restore their manhood once and for all. There must be some kind of counter spell that can overpower this dark magic Abisola has employed. They pleaded with the juju priest, "Our homes and families are being torn apart. You have to help us." The juju priest, taking pity on these women, cast his bones and consulted his mystical oracle once more. After several long moments and some wiggling of his nose, he finally spoke. Yes, there is a way to break this curse over your husbands, he said. You must take this pot that possesses ancient magic. He handed the wives a small pot. Spray the contents around Abisola's head, and she will fall into a deep sleep. Then chant this counter curse phrase I will teach you. The spell over your men will be dissolved. Their manhoods and ability to desire other women will instantly be restored. The wives crunched the pot in their hands like it was the most precious jewel in the world. They quickly learned the counter phrase from the juju priest, thanking him for his help. That night, while the men were once again in Abisola's hut, the wives set their plan into motion. Under the darkness, they crept into Abisola's compound. Silently, with steady hands, the wives carefully spread the white powder in the pot around Abisola's hut. Inside, Abisola laid in the center of the hut on a mat, deep asleep, surrounded by the slumbering body of their husbands and lovers. Then quickly they chanted the ancient counter phrase 3 times, just as the juju priest had instructed. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but then the men woke up shaking their heads as if waking from a trance. Their eyes went wide as they realized where they were and what they had been doing. My wife, forgive me. I didn't mean to stray. Some dark powers were controlling me, they started exclaiming as they rushed back to their respective wives' arms. The spell had indeed been broken. Word spread rapidly through the village of the curse being dissolved and Abisola's hold over the men destroyed. The husbands and wives rejoiced in being united again. As for Abisola, she woke up the next day feeling confused and dizzy, with no memory of the previous night's events. When she tried calling out the men who had so eagerly satisfied her desire just a day ago, she was met with silence. The men had all returned to their wives, refusing to look even in Abisola's direction. Now that the spell over them had been broken, realizing that the curse she had enacted upon the village menfolk through the river goddess had somehow been undone, Abisola knew there was only one person who could provide answers. She had to return to the river and try to find the river goddess. Once more, without wasting time, Abisola ran through the village to the river banks. When she arrived, she began to call out the river goddess' name. Great river goddess, please come forth and speak to me. I am in need of your assistance. Despite Abisola's repeated phrases, the river goddess did not appear. She cried out for what felt like this, seated by the river banks, but the river goddess never showed her. Abisola could not understand why the river goddess had abandoned her. Was it because the river goddess was angered that the curse she enacted had been broken? Her wish for all the men to desire her instead of finding her husband she had always wanted. As the days turned into weeks, Abisola was forced to accept the harsh reality. The river goddess would never appear to her again. The bitterly disappointed and heartbroken woman had no choice but to return to the village with no answer and no prospect of ever finding a husband. Abisola realized too late that she should have stuck her initial wish to simply find a husband rather than be reaching lost moment of vengeance, and her greed for more had cost her the chance at a real loving marriage that the river goddess seems to had been offering, and so it was that for the rest of her days. Abisola lived out her life as the village loneliness fattest woman. The story of Abisola is a morality tale. It is an example of how destructive anger, greed, and obsession over societal beauty standards could be if left to fester on one's heart. Though Abisola was a victim of curse for years due to her body size and shape, her lashing out in such a spiteful way brought her no true happiness or fulfillment. In the end, the lesson from this story can be found in the book of Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23. It says, "Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." Thanks for watching.